This guy's got to go.
It's not looking good.
After the first week of training camp, there have been some players who have played really well and some who have not. So today we want to talk about a particular player for the Minnesota Vikings who, and I know it's still early, but just with past performance and seeing what's happened so far, it's just the guy. He's just not it. He needs to be replaced, and it's time.
Yeah, man, I agree. It's not looking good. I think the worst part about it is we just have not done our due diligence to create like competition for this guy and depth at this position, in my opinion. And I think that's kind of like, if there's one thing going into this training camp that I wish we would have done differently, it would have been to worry about that area a little bit more. This is a guy that last year actually lost his starting job because he felt he didn't have pressure behind him and he felt too comfortable with his job. He did come back and play a little bit better, and we were hoping that coming into this season he would have a fire lit under his ass. The only thing his ass is doing is touching the turf from guys like Harrison Phillips, and this guy is, everybody knew, it's Garrett Bradbury.
Yeah, man. He put on some muscle in the offseason, and people kind of noticed after he came back from his benching last year that maybe there was something that kind of the fire was kind of lit underneath him. But, just seeing that so far this early in camp, he's already getting pushed around. It's not a good sign. I like Garrett Bradbury, and I hate to put these videos out there because it sounds like you're dissing on the guy. Garrett Bradbury's, it sounds like by all accounts, a very nice human being.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's part of his problem. Maybe he's just a little bit too nice, to be playing a position where you got to be mean. You're going up against some of the big nose tackles in the league, and it just hasn't worked out. In the run game, he's amazing. He's fast. He can get out. He can get out to the second level quickly. He can even catch. We saw that last year.
Yeah.
But
we need tight end depth.
Yeah, right. But as a traditional just pass blocking center, which I feel like we're going to go to a lot more of a passing game now. He's just. Man, I hate to say it, but he's just not it, And I think it's time to give up on the Garrett Bradbury experiment. And we've hit a point where you just got to move on. Somebody else needs to take that spot.
Yeah, I think. We'll see. We got to go through preseason. It is kind of early in training camp, but still, he's had his shot, I guess. Like you said, maybe he needs a little more dog in him. I don't really know what you do to change someone like that, but so far he's, obviously we picked him in the first round. The talent has always been there, or at least we felt like it was. And I don't know. I think it's could definitely be time to move on. So I think we should look into who we think could potentially replace him. At this point, he's playing with the starters, but it's not good that he's getting blown up already in training camp. You expect a big difference. So I think we have to figure it out. So let's start with Chris Reed. So with Chris Reed, he was playing right guard. It was kind of like a competition between him. So like as far as an update, I guess, for the right guard position, might as well do that while we're here. Chris Reed, it was kind of like Chris Reed, Jesse Davis, and then you had Ed Ingram. It sounded like Jesse Davis has a pretty good shot at that starting job, at least to start the season. Chris Reed in between, I think people think Ed Ingram's a little bit above Chris Reed. And then the biggest confusing thing, not confusing, but it's just the Wyatt Davis situation. That's always it's just interesting because, he was could have been a first round pick or whatever. Like people thought he had the potential. We picked him in the third round. We were all excited for like a year. And we're wondering like why he didn't get a chance or whatever. And it could be because maybe he's just not very good. It must be. You have a whole new coaching staff, whole new everything else. And he's practicing with the third team or whatever. But back to the center thing. I think Chris Reed, I heard they might have him kind of switching and playing at the center position a little bit. So, at this point, like get as many bodies and try everything because I don't know. I don't like to hear the center just getting blown up in training camp, especially when the rest of our offensive line is finally coming together a little bit. What do you think?
For sure. Yep. As soon as I saw the Chris Reed signing and knew that he had a little bit of center experience, I thought that'd have been a good choice. and he was very highly thought of as well, playing for the Colts. I think he was forced into a starting role last year due to injury, and he played well by all accounts. So I thought this was we signed him, like, oh, that's the deal. And then when I heard Bradbury is still the guy, I was kind of confused by it. But I think he definitely has a really good shot to take that spot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then for our next guy here,
offensive lineman, free agency signing, Austin Schlottman. I believe we signed him on the first day of free agency. Coming over from Denver, obviously our offensive line coach, Chris Cooper, he was the offensive line coach for the Denver Broncos last year. This guy initially was brought in to kind of be that maybe backup center swing guard guy. So I mean, I don't think he's a very big name, but if you're in a pinch and Bradbury's just not your guy, anything got to be better. So giving Schlottman a chance might not be the worst idea.
Yeah, I agree, man. I mean, like you said, at this point, you just put bodies in there and see what works. I do wish, again, that we did kind of have more people to fulfill that spot, but that will move us on to this next guy. You know, we've talked about it. Everybody's talked about it. I think there's a Twitter account that every day they say we still have whoever that is. I forget what your name is. I'm sorry, but if you're watching this, shouting you out right now. Every single day it says this is day whatever without signing JC Tretter. And, you know, it's obviously a very confusing situation. Kwesi worked with him for the Browns, so it's weird that he's not, like, on top of it. So who knows what that means? Is it, you know, JC Tretter feels like he should get more money, or Kwesi is like, hey, this injury history is a cause of concern. Like, we don't know what it is, but one thing we do know, there's no question that even him with one leg would probably be better than Garrett Bradbury at this time. Yeah, what do you think on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think enough has been said about JC Tretter where I think he'd be a really good signing. But again, the knee injuries, Kwesi's going to know him better than anybody. The knee injuries could be a major deterrent. And I get it with an offensive lineman. You don't want any sort of injury like that. Maybe something with the fact that he's the union president too, the players union.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows if that's got something to do with it. But at this point, you could probably get him pretty cheap. So I think it'd be a good signing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But moving on, this next player is my favorite one to take over.
This one, favorite one to take over. And, you know, I mean, it is kind of the worst case scenario, but honestly, it still would probably be our best bet at center other than Bradbury. And that is a door.
I mean, think about it. A locked door, you have to go up to the door, take out your key.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if it's your house, take out your key, put it in the lock, turn the lock, open the door, which can take some time. If it's not your house, you got to kick the door down and all that type of stuff. So let's just say let's say it's your door. You know, you got the key, you go into it. It's going to take you probably like 4 to 5 seconds. Garrett Bradbury, he lets people by in like a second or two. So this gives Kirk Cousins that little bit extra time to throw the football, and I'm all in. Let's sign the door relatively cheap. It's a wooden door, though. The price of wood is still pretty high, but, you know.
I mean, and Bradbury we're still paying him a lot more. So
exactly. So, again, hate to make this type of video because it's still early, and you know, this has nothing to do with Bradbury as a person, but on the business side of it, it's just so far not so good, not working out. So a change might need to be made.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, man. So let us know your thoughts on this situation down in the comments, and we'll see you guys next time on the GG Sports Podcast.
Skol Vikings.